very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I have never introduced a panel the way I'm going to now, which is the combined age of the other two panelists is less than my age. So I feel really old, but I am so thrilled to welcome you both. I've been reading case studies on you and I've had opportunity to chat with you. It's been fantastic. We've limited amount of time, so I want to go directly to a few questions. And the way we do this, if it's okay with you, Ankiti and Ritesh, is I'll ask a few questions and then we'll just throw it open to the audience here. So to begin with, Ankiti, in your case, your childhood, early career was in India. And then you have established your enterprise in Southeast Asia and across different countries. If you could talk a little bit about what was the thinking as you moved to those countries and what has been some of your experience as you've built a cross-national enterprise, please.
First of all, thank you for having me and that very generous description. I was just telling Professor right before we got on stage that growing up, one thing that was very obvious was that in India, we are always told, be the Uber of India or be the XYZ of India or whatever else. And you rarely hear that being said to Americans, or you rarely hear that being said, frankly, to a lot of people from a lot of developed countries. And then we put a lot of constraints that you grew up in India, it's a large market, why don't you focus on that? But the world is so interconnected today. It depends really on the product, on the opportunity that you're chasing, but the world is so interconnected today that, and Indians are at a place today that it doesn't make sense to typecast us anymore. I'm not saying I thought about all of this and analyzed it before moving on out of the country and deciding to start up. That was mostly done in over-enthusiastic lack of any information about how hard it was actually going to be. But I think, that's one thing. The other thing is that when you grow up in India and you're competing with a billion people, whether you're competing with a billion people to get into a top school or to get a good job or to start a company, to secure funding, to, run yourself through all the hurdles that hit you from incorporating a company to hiring people. When you're just doing that in such a competitive and huge market, I think you build muscle that can then, you can win anywhere. So I think those are really the two themes of my life and why I moved out and started up.
Thank you for sharing that. And Ritesh, let me ask the question Ankiti said everybody asks, which is, you have such a large market in India, there's so much opportunity. Why did you move out of India to all the different countries? What was the thinking? What are the challenges and what's the experience been so far?
Sure, thank you so much for having me here. I'll answer this in two parts, which is what inspired us and what's the outcome, because the outcome is also not necessarily there yet because it's so early in the time frame. So to begin with, I think OYO started in India in the suburbs of Delhi in a town called Gurgaon. The first hotel did reasonably well, so we felt it makes sense to open it across places. We opened it across India. Our global expansion strategy sort of followed our internal thesis that we call is patiently restless. That is, until you know, be patient, but when you know how it works, be restless. So we opened, our first market was, a lot of people think China, it was actually Malaysia. We'd started that 3 years before we started China. So for 3 years, we were making tons of mistakes and learning every day. It's almost not even funny, the kind of basic mistakes we made back in the early days. But once we sort of knew that we were at a place, and the total amount of capital we spent was like less than $1 million in those 3 years, but learned a lot. And that's the playbook that we then took, which was probably 50% of what we would eventually be, and launched in China. Now, why China is a question I get from a lot of people saying that, you could have launched anywhere. Why would you go to China first, the hardest market of all? There were three big reasons. The first one is I was traveling to China for 4 years before that to learn from other hotel chain CEOs. And every time I'd come back, I'd feel that there are 4 things that we knew better that we could probably try and replicate. The market size was big. We don't like operating in small markets. We would rather be leaders in big markets than we're leaders in many small markets. And I think the third bit was just generally we felt that there was a strong sense of enthusiasm among the early people we brought in. Over time, we looked at both a perspective of strategy with a view of saying that how many countries across the world have a big opportunity in less than 150 room hotel chains, because 95% of the hotel buildings in the world are small, but 100% of the hotel chains want big buildings. On the other hand, we also had an authentic entrepreneurial decision making. So in the US, we saw that a lot of hotel owners gave us feedback of saying, what could we do better? In Europe, we saw that there was a significant amount of unbranded assets. In Southeast Asia, we saw the same. Where it is today, our results can be divided into three different phases. The phase one is growth. Are you able to see great growth? Phase two is, are you able to see good gross margins? And phase three is, are you able to see operating efficiency leading to good directional positive EBITDA? I think our India and European businesses are the most mature there. They're in phase three, where there is growth, there is gross margins, and there is operating efficiency showing up now. I think our Chinese and Southeast Asian businesses are in phase two, where the gross margins have just started coming in. Operating efficiency will hopefully come in the future. And our newest markets where we launched less than 10 months back are Americas, North America, and Latin America, and Japan. We'll know about it in the future. So hopefully it turns out well, but we will see. We will see.
Just a follow-up question on that. And this fairly old, mature organizations that are global or multinational, particularly coming out of India, one of the challenges they face is they want to maintain a strong culture. And yet they want to, once you become international, have a local presence which will be fairly strong and close to the local environment. In fact, Indian businesses that have gone international have struggled to get the balance right. What's your thinking on that? Maybe Ritesh, you can start first, and Ankiti perhaps after that.
Yeah, no, I would have wished for Ankiti to give me the air cover generally, but I will live with it this time. But I think specifically on this question of being an Indian multinational, I think there are three, the few advantages that we have. The first is the kind of management that we have attracted are people who have operated and have been leaders in large global businesses or businesses outside of India already. And I feel this is the coming of the current generation of new businesses getting built, where you have leaders who come in. Abhinav was here at HBS. A lot of our leaders have basically been in business schools across the world, companies across the world, and have come to India with an enthusiasm that they want to make a big global difference. So the talent plays a big role. And I think the second one is being able to make sure that because you're so early in the game, you're able to make mistakes very quickly, but also improve very quickly. So it's not like we got everything right at the first time. It's not like we've gotten everything right today, but we are better than what we were a year back, and hopefully we will learn and get better in the coming year. But the trick of the whole thing is consistently listening, making sure that you acknowledge the places you can improve on, and then execute basis that. So we are listening always and we are improving.
I think that's exactly true, which is what makes me say that when you say Indian culture, and I know it's a huge theme across traditional Indian businesses, especially when they go abroad, but for new age businesses, culture is much more about values and shared values. And when I say values, I mean values like, we value growth, we value speed, we value integrity, and they're not culturally held within a certain segment or nationality of people. They can actually transcend very well across different geographies and different ethnic cultures. So a company's culture can be fairly homogeneous if the bedrock is these strong values. For example, we have one of our largest teams is in Indonesia. 85% of the team is Muslim, 50% of the team is female. At least 80% of those women come to work in hijabs. Now in Thailand, the culture is very different, and now we have offices in New York and LA where the culture is, as you can imagine, very different. Our Bangalore office is full of IITians where the culture is very different. Singapore office is very different. But collectively, when we put all these people in the same room, they're speaking the same language, they have very similar DNA, they're chasing the same goals, and that comes from this shared understanding of what a new economy business's culture really means. And I think that is a unique strength that we have I don't want to sound pompous, but I think startups do this a little bit better than traditional businesses, that the understanding of culture is about shared values.
Yeah. And so just taking that a little further, which is startups, you grow very rapidly and you've grown in multiple countries and so on. I guess one of the very critical things, once you've been able to get proof of concept and all that, is getting the initial team right. And Ankiti, you were sharing a little bit of a story with me of how you got the team together. So will you just share a little bit how you got the team, which gives you a little bit of air cover, Ritesh, so you can come back after that.
Thank me later. It's actually a fun story about how the founding team came together in a very interesting way. And we're all really close friends. And now we have about half of the leadership, which is really senior. At an average, they're all 20 years older than me, and we get along really well. So my co-founder, who was a back-end gaming engineer in 2014 when I met him, my flatmate invited his flatmate over for a beer, and he came over, and girl and guy met at a party, but instead started a company together, right? So that was us. And then our COO today was somebody that I know for the last 10 years. I grew up in Mumbai, and I went actually to a college called Xavier's, which has one of the largest college festivals, and he and I used to do the college festival together. That's how we know each other, and we have this extreme trust and bonding since then. The festival is called Madhar, and it's ridiculous because 10 years later we still have that same lingo and we talk like that now in board meetings. It's all still the same. On the other hand, our CFO, which is the other very interesting story, James Perry. I was an unemployed ex-Sequoia analyst, bumming around trying to find out what I'm going to do with my life, and I want to start up. I have no idea what I want to do. He was back then a senior managing director leading Citi's Asia TMT investment banking business. He was involved in some of the biggest deals, and Alibaba and Ant Financial and this and that. He's like a big shot, at least 20 years older than me. And I just went to him and said, listen, I do not understand how exits and IPOs and fundraise and how do you look at companies, how do things get value? Please can you explain to me how things happen at scale? Can you teach me what's going on in China? And he never made me feel down. And over the years, over the next 4 or 5 years, we stayed in touch, and I asked him a lot of dumb questions. And then when it was time to bring on a CFO, we brought him on. So we all go back a long way in strange and interesting ways in which we've put this team together, but there's a lot of trust because of that.
And even that technology partner you have in Colombo,
Oh yeah. So we acquired a company in Sri Lanka. So Colombo is the only other place besides Bangalore where we have an engineering presence. So again, right, both Dhruv and I came from a consumer internet background, and we didn't understand factories and shop floor tech really, and we didn't want to claim to understand anything. We don't know anything about anything. But we're like, obviously this is a huge opportunity. The whole retail supply chain is broken, but we don't understand factory tech. So we found this guy who's running this fantastic SaaS company out of Sri Lanka and has customers all over Asia, and everybody in factories is using his software. And we're like, obviously this is the guy, and he's again 15, 20 years older than all of us, and running a fantastic tech company. And we brought him on board, and somehow it just really works because of that shared values. We're like, okay, what is guiding us? At any given point of time, whenever there's an argument, it's not that there is a 28-year-old woman running the company of so many very, very amazing, great people. It's that our shared mission and values guide our decision making, and it's fairly meritocratic that way. So I think we make it work.
Wonderful. Ritesh.
So I think most people who start their businesses have either ex-colleagues or people they know as potentially to recruit. I unfortunately had only high school friends, and not many of them were enthused about dropping out of high school and coming and working with me. So I didn't have a choice. Right after my Thiel fellowship, when I went back to India to really grow OYO, One of the early things I realized from people around me is we should start building a team, because we started going from one hotel to more, and challenges invariably start coming, and you're not good at most of the things, especially when you're starting that early in life. So I was told by my friends in the TL Fellowship that you should stay away from two kinds of people. You should not be around people who are consultants, and you should not be around people who went to business schools. Not around business schools. So the first person I partnered with, Abhinav, I think he's around. He went to HBS and then was at BCG. So that was the irony of the whole thing. But of course, like I told, we learn in our jobs. So I learned quite early that generalized statements are not right. And I think for 5 months we had just one hotel, right, before Abhinav came in. In 1 year after that, we launched in roughly 50 cities across the country. We put our systems, processes, and a lot of things together, and that really helped us accelerate. And over time, I realized that because I did not have a choice of people I knew, the only choice I had was bringing high-quality professionals from great backgrounds. And I think over the last 6 years, we brought in a large group of those people, whether it is Abhinav, Maninder, Kavi, Aditya, who used to run Indigo earlier, Sam in China, Tobias in Europe, all of these people. And good news is, in the history of our company, we've never lost anybody of that. So people come and they stay on forever. Funny thing is, our history is 6 years old, so
but
not like we have a long history.
But on that, Ritesh, Ankiti says the reason we, across age divide, across geography, are together is a little bit of, as I heard you, trust and common values, at least business-wise. What would you attribute that to? The fact that in 6 years people with very different backgrounds come together?
Yeah, I think I will second Ankiti into that with an addition. I think the first one is the shared values are extremely valuable among the group of people that we work together with. There is a strong sense of trust, there is a strong sense of respect, there is a strong sense of ownership and accountability. So not only do we believe that we trust each other, but we also know that because I am friends with one person doesn't mean that they're not gonna challenge me or question me for the success of the company. Which is where the outcome is that all of us also have shared dreams. The dreams of wanting to make a big impact. All of these people did very well for themselves, were very successful in their own companies. But in their hearts they had this thing of saying, why can't we create one of the earliest global consumer companies based out of India? Why can't there be an Indian consumer brand in the 20th order city of Switzerland, Australia and Asia at the same time? And I think that sense of, and all of us come from middle income backgrounds, did reasonably well in education except for me. All of them did really well in their jobs, but at the same time had this hunger of trying to do something more. But I think that is the reason why people come and they feel excited. But the reason they stay, I second fully Ankiti in saying that shared values are the only reason people sort of constantly ask themselves that if I'm not here, in the other place where I am, will I also have people who will have the same shared set of values regardless of the dream and aspiration I have? So I fully agree with Ankiti on that.
Thank you. If I were to ask you, based on your experiences over the last several years with the enterprise, but also leading up to it, there is perhaps one lesson, personal lesson you have learned, that you'd be willing to share with us, what would that be? And maybe Ritesh, you can start us off on that.
Sure. No, I think when you start a new business or a new company or anything new, to be fair, there are 100 reasons why it won't work, right? Right from saying the bank account opening took so long, so why should I pursue? I tried recruiting 4 people, they didn't choose. 2 consumers of mine gave me a very bad feedback. So there are 100 reasons why it won't work in the early days. But there's probably only one reason which will inspire you to do that, which is to be able to create the impact that you really started with. I mean, we started with a perspective of saying that consumers expect good quality spaces at the right price point at the right locations. Here in the United States, the average rating of the economy hotels is roughly 2.8. We feel that that should change. People should, at $75, be able to get at least a 3.5 on 5, if not 5. So from our perspective, that problem statement is what kept me going. And I feel the one lesson hence is perseverance. I feel that it's so easy to give up so early. And I always take this perspective of saying that if I don't take this risk every day, I will regret it for all of my life that I did not try to make this difference. So we may fall down, but every time we fall down, we're going to stand up and go at the same thing harder than ever before. So I think perseverance is the one big learning I have.
I think, before I go to my one big learning, I just want to add, this is the truest thing about entrepreneurship, right? Like, everything fails all the time, and nobody sees that. What you see is less than 1% of our real lives, because the struggles are just so many. It's important to have that perseverance, and it's important to have a pathological optimism. And it's like a disorder almost, right? Because everything is going wrong and you're failing in every way possible. And you have 30 days of payroll left, and we've all had that situation. And you're somehow still, saying it's going to work out. Because if you lose faith and start questioning the mission, then the whole team doesn't actually have a reason to stay. And it's incredibly hard. So I think that's my biggest learning too. I think just to add my unique one, I think besides this one, is that it's important to know when you're failing in something and not be afraid to disrupt yourself. And I think not just me, we both get this a lot from the press and from people that, their businesses are pivoting and this and that. I don't think it's a pivot. I don't think it's an evolution. It's a natural evolution of the business and the business model as you go into new markets and you launch new products and you try to do different things. And when you see that you're failing at something, you try harder to achieve the mission, but sometimes the tactics need to change. So, for example, when we started the business, it's a misnomer that we started with just B2C e-commerce, because we were always providing tools for merchants, mainly software tools for merchants. But very soon, within 24 months, we realized that there was a bigger opportunity in the fashion supply chain, because unlike other supply chains, it was not well served upstream. And then if we thought about it in a very egoistic manner, that, no, we started this and we've gone out and announced to the world and this is why we've raised money. So we must somehow fight that battle until we run out of money and completely mess things up. We said, no, listen, let's be honest, take a really hard look at ourselves and evolve into a business model that we truly believe in. So I think it's important to, not drink the Kool-Aid too much and quickly fix things if you have to.
We'll turn to Q&A soon, but I have to ask a question of you, Ankiti, and then later Ritesh. Ankiti, what's your reaction when people say, woman CEO out of India leading a unicorn? Have you heard that?
At the cost of upsetting some people, and my global head of PR who's sitting in the audience, I don't like it very much, because so there are two things. There's one thing to like, which is that yes, women and brown women, South Asian women are getting recognition from this, but we overhear it a lot, and it really is a very brutal reminder to me of how underrepresented we are globally. Right, so Indian unicorn, when this happened, 27, and then woman, and you add all that, it's actually a lot of pressure, and it's a very random kind of pressure. I don't know if I signed up for that. And it also comes with like massive imposter syndrome. I don't know if this happens to you, but I'm just like, who are they talking about? This whole article is, I have no idea who they're talking about. And I don't think it's a very pleasant feeling, but I understand the weight and the responsibility that it comes with. And I just want to clarify that my goal very much is to help women and Indian women for sure and improve representation. But it's a very brutal reminder of how bad things really are.
Well, thank you, and thanks for sharing your personal feeling on that. Ritesh, the similar question. What's your one pet peeve or one thing that you feel very good about when you or your experience with it?
Oh, pet peeve? And the other one you said is what I feel very good about.
Yes, either both or one pick.
No, I think I feel the first one is basically saying that I feel as we have grown from being an Indian company to becoming a global company, I think we need to work harder to be understood, and that's an important commitment from my perspective to make sure that we do a better job of. Which is why it's hard for me to have pet peeves, because I have to do my job before I start having pet peeves. What I feel good about is, people have given us the opportunity. I think it's hard to get the opportunity that we have gotten to operate this business across the world. So we are very thankful that people give us the opportunity. But generally speaking, most of the feedback we receive externally, we feel happy that people care about us. They give real feedback. Among that, there is some part is noise, some part is real. Whatever is real, we take that, learn, and try and do a better job next day.
Yeah. And Ankiti, end with asking you, what do you feel most proud about or happy about?
I think it's entrepreneurship is never really about just money, and it can never be. And there's always a greater mission which is driving this madness, right? All of us have built this company in 4, 5, 6 years. We always say it's not years of experiences; it's experiences per year. And there are some crazy stories. So I think what keeps you going is genuinely having that sense of purpose. So for me, it's that, I was telling you this backstage, that everybody wears clothes. It's 5% of global GDP, $3.8 trillion industry. Yet it's somehow one of the worst, most inefficient, most disorganized industries. There are little children in factories. There are very inefficient practices, irresponsible manufacturing. We're filling up landfills. The polyester is killing the environment. It's not sustainable. We're really negatively affecting climate change. We're really sitting at the nucleus of manufacturing in one industry which is really, really guilty of doing a lot of bad things. And when I wake up in the morning and I know that we are bringing QC facilities and software into factories and genuinely making the world better, bringing sustainable fabrics, making sure there is responsible manufacturing, making sure that lady in a garment factory in Bangladesh is getting fair pay for the American brand she manufactured for, it actually gives me a lot of purpose. 65% of workers in the apparel industry are women. Not because apparel industry is very fair and wants to employ women. It's because women laborers take less pay than men. So when the option is between unfair trade practices and employment practices and employing women, so it's all super unfair. There's a long way to go. So that on a bad day, that's what makes me get up in the morning and go to work.
Okay, I guess the audience has been very patient, so I'm going to ask folks if they have any questions. I'll call on you, and please introduce yourself as you stand up and ask a pithy, brief question.
Hi, I'm Anshul. This question is for Ritesh specifically. So, have you ever felt the lack of having a co-founder, or is having a team of professionals with a ton of work experience enough to compensate for that?
Yeah, no, instead of having one co-founder, I just have 10. So it comes with both the upside and the over-communication you need to do. I think, in my view, if co-founder was a thing that was only a title, I would very happily share it with my broader management. I don't think that their experience has taken away from their entrepreneurial zeal in any way. I believe they bring their entrepreneurial zeal on the fore and professional capabilities on the back. Thank you.
Yes, so please.
Thank you so much for your time. I think both Zilingo and OYO have a variety of stakeholders. They play in a landscape of a lot of partners. So in general, what are your main challenges in navigating these partnerships that you'll establish? And more specifically for Ritesh, OYO in recent light has received a lot of criticism from their hoteling partners over payments, over different kinds of mechanisms where there are some discrepancy in the amount of money they get and rent. How do you plan on resolving this?
So I'll answer both of them in a combined sense. The first one is, we have the good opportunity of working together with close to 45,000 hotel owners and 55,000 homeowners, so roughly 100,000 people this year will receive close to $4 billion of combined dollars in their bank accounts from the company. So I believe that's a big challenge in itself and something that we are ourselves learning about. I think specifically in the last few months, as you yourself shared, we have had some criticism that has come from our asset owners as to what we can do better. Our belief is in this period of time we've also learned 2 to 3 important things. The first one is making sure that over-communicate with your partners. We believe that when you're a small company, being able to over-communicate is considered table stakes. But as a large organization, you need to institute over-communication. The second one is making sure that you never take that 1% as being a percentage, because a lot of times in your feedback session you're told that, well, this is just 1% of the overall system. But remember, 1% of the size of company we are is a large number of individuals, and making sure that the last mile, last individual is solved for is also incredibly valuable. We have learned from that and we are actively working towards improving it. Last month, in the month of January itself, the asset owners, some of whom we had asked to leave because of our customer service or who had left themselves last year, 100 of them came back into our system. So we are actively working and improving on it. The follow-up was perspective about partners in general. I think that reality of life is, here at OYO, we've taken pride in saying that individually these units are not as efficient as they could if they were a part of one big family. So that's the thesis behind our business. So we are actively engaged in making sure that how can we every day do a better job of bringing better results for these asset partners. To the extent that all of them can keep seeing 60, 70, 100% growth on their income, we would do decently well. But if they don't, I think there's no reason for us to be successful.
There's a gentleman just waiting there. I'll just come to you. Okay, please.
Hi, I'm Uday. This is a question both to Ankiti and Ritesh. Do you mind sharing the specific examples or stories from your early days of the startup ecosystem supporting you, be it angel investors or incubators, accelerators, meetups, events, other startup founders, fellow startup founders? It'd be great if you could share those. And Ritesh, it would be great if you could also add to it the learnings from the Thiel Fellowship.
One story each, just taking in account the time. Anything with you?
No, I'll come. Okay, so I think one of the best stories that comes to mind is this is between our seed and Series A, and I was completely caught up with the business operations, and obviously you're doing it for the first time. You're really, taking the 1% very seriously, and you're completely caught up, and money is running out. And this is a great example of how the ecosystem comes together to help you. One of my really close friends and angel investors, who's also a very successful founder in India, called me up one day. I was boarding a flight, and he said, listen, just like you don't make decisions when you're hungry about what you eat, don't make the business decisions when you're running out of runway. So it suddenly hit me that, what did I do? And I think several times that has happened, and some of the most meaningful advice I've gotten has been from other founders, and the Indian and Southeast Asian founder ecosystem has actually been extremely helpful. If anybody imagines that we're all catty and trying to destroy each other, I don't think that's true. I think people go out of their way to help each other.
Ritesh?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the second part of the question. I think for me specifically, the Thiel Fellowship was truly valuable from 2 perspectives. The first one is the size of exposure. I think, the people I surrounded myself with, I remember one of the Thiel Fellows, he was, I think at that point, 17 or 18, and he, the first time he came back, we used to live in a home, we used to rent a home together among all of us. The foundation paid for it, so it was okay. What we heard, when he came back, the first thing he told, and he had not even started his company, he said, I want to build the world's biggest flash storage company. So that evening, I just couldn't stop thinking about it that if I said that to anybody in India, I get thrown out of that place. I get, like, people say this guy is crazy. Why would he even utter something as, like, even if I said I want to build the biggest hotel chain in Gurgaon, like, even then it was crazy. So I feel that the enthusiasm and ability to have bold aspirations was one new thing I learned. And I think the second thing I learned was innovation doesn't come in one big packet. It comes in many small installments. So every time I see a lot of these people build their businesses, they would literally look at the attention to detail of saying, in the third screen for the consumer, the color, the font, and the size of the font, how does that change the potential transaction percentage? So I think the ability of people to not overestimate innovation as being that one big thing that's going to get researched, but rather say that what are those little things that make the difference are the two big learnings I had at the TL Fellowship. The reason I came back to India and started OYO was because the money was running up, and I started realizing that $60,000 would go a longer way in India than in most other parts of the world that I knew of. So that's why I went back.
So the second last question here, and then the last question.
Thank you so much, Ankiti. I've seen one of your video, and you said that when you're growing up, you've never seen any woman, in role model or someone. But for me, you're an inspiration and a role model. So with that note, I would like to ask both of you. So you guys are, started from like nothing, like from the scratch, and that thing, and now when you're taking a decision, now you're operating across the country. So while you're taking a decision from that note, and now when you're taking some kind of a fearless decision, so how it varies, and a lot of senior person, a lot of people from MIT Sloan or HBS, so how you take decision fearlessly even now, or still your company is working as a startup company, or it's like a complete grown up? So that is my question to both of you. Thank you.
Let me break that up. I think the first part, which is that, growing up in India, and I think I said something about my generation of women also didn't have a lot of role models. I recently spent time with one of my very few female role models, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, who was like fantastic. But we had like 1, 2, 3, you can basically count them on one hand, right, growing up. And I think it's okay, because a lot of times the startup founders that I learned from, they were men, and that's okay, and that's fine. Of course, it helps to have people that look like you and talk like you, to see them and to feel more confident. But really, growing up, my mom was my real role model, because she has more degrees than me and my dad combined. She quit her job to make sure that I was okay, because my dad had a transferable job in a government PSU all over India. So, very humble beginnings. She was a highly educated professor who quit everything and just stayed at home so that I was brought up the right way as I was traveling in Tripura and Dehradun and God knows where all. So I think that's how I made up for that lack of role model. And I think how I came about fearlessly making decisions is it flows in really well with what Ritesh was saying before about Thiel Foundation, is that when I was 23, and I was working at Sequoia Capital, and this is, like you said, luck has and Kismat has a lot to do with everything. I was 23, and I was getting to see founders like Ritesh. I was 23 when I met Ritesh. I met Nadeem of Gojek, William at Tokopedia, Kunal at Freecharge and now Cred, Dipinder at Zomato, and that ecosystem that I was surrounded with, I suddenly saw that anything is possible. And I think I thank Sequoia for that opportunity, obviously, to go around and, I used to ask really dumb questions of these guys also. This goes back to my CFO and my co-founder story. Raised my hand and said, okay, how does this work? How does that work? And I'm really thankful for that. And I think the lesson there is that life throws up opportunities in very strange ways, and you just have to make the most of it. You can't expect, everybody can't expect to go to Harvard. It was impossible for me to afford this college, for sure, if even they would take me, if I had applied. But, the thought was impossible. So you have to make the best of whatever life throws at you.
You want to answer?
Sure. No, I'll begin by saying that, look, I bet Sequoia is very thankful to have you back in the day, Ankiti. I'm sure they're telling other people that if you work here, you could be Ankiti. So you should apply. But coming back, I think from our perspective here at OYO, it works as a combination of a startup and an institution. I think it works as an institution in every place where, because just the margin of error and risk is very high today, we make sure that a lot of decisions are still run as a high quality institution, but at the same time, once you have all the data, you still need to make decisions basis your mission and your values, in which I believe you're still operating like a startup. So it's, in my view, a combination.
Thank you. Last question to that gentleman over there who's been waiting patiently. Pithy, short, good question.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Chinchong from Malaysia. Great that you all are sharing about it, because our board directors always talk about work for you guys. And we also support that company. So my question is that where we are at Series BC, where neither big nor small, and have the balance, growth, profit, and now with post WeWork and everything. What are the advice for us? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Look, you and I have the same problems, right? Which is, how do you balance growth, profit, and all the things that come along. So I am myself learning. But from what I know, I think you don't ever have a choice of saying what is more important. You need to be able to say that the growth should be accretive, it should bring some kind of potential profit in the future, and your profit should not lead to growth going away. So it's very hard for me to tell you how, but if there's one learning I will share, is basically being able to make sure that you have, this morning I was hearing an advice was very, very interesting. I agree with that, and that's some perspective of how we think about it as well. Always having a couple of plans and being able to preempt failures and opportunities. Whenever you see failures, you learn from it and either take the hard decision sooner rather than later, and if there is something that's working, double down sooner. But both of it with a sense of empathy and respect. So it's hard for me to give you an answer of how do you balance, but the easiest way is being able to make sure that you make some decisions, track it very closely. If it works, double down. If it doesn't, then slow it down. Okay, you have something?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that, right? It's important to be agile so that you can try and test different things at different points, and you don't get caught up with the decisions that you've made, and you can quickly fix them if they're not the right ones.
All right, with that, thank you very much to both of you.